Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Thistle National Forest, absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. This is going to be a really interesting show. The herb is going to be on milk thistle. That's our herb of the week. And milk thistle is such a great herb. Definitely one you want to have on hand. Before I get into that though, I got a couple of announcements. And yes, for once I am not announcing a new book. I've actually got the next one written, and I'm giving it a little time to think about a few things and go over and proofread. And I got a couple of friends reading it right now, and they're giving me some feedback. Probably going to be out about April 1, I think. So you won't have to wait long for the next book. And I may actually have two coming out about the same time because there's another longer project I've been working on. But like I said, that's not the announcement for this week. This week's announcement is I have started a new feature on my Substack newsletter. You know, I love herbal medicine. It's a real passion of mine, but as y'all know, my interests are pretty wide-ranging. I have done, in the past couple of years, several video lessons, usually featured on Rumble. Sometimes they're on Odyssey as well. I was kicked off of YouTube, but apparently they are letting me get a toe back in the door, but I don't think I'm going to put anything about herbal medicine on YouTube. I don't think, honestly, they're worthy of it. But I'm not going to take the risk of spending my time and saying that some herbs are antiviral and some, jerk saying that I'm contradicting Dr. Fauci or something and have my videos pulled down again. But Rumble is really good. That's really my preferred site. I have several, I guess 20 some herbal medicine lessons on Rumble for free. I haven't done one in a while due to circumstances. It's been a pretty injury prone year this last year, honestly. And the weather's been pretty awful through the summer. It just rained every day, and now we've had this mild winter, so the pollen is already out like crazy in North Carolina. But I will get back to herbal videos soon. I have begun doing some videos about some of my other interests, that are useful to my listeners. I mentioned in my cookbook, The Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking, that I would do some videos to accompany it. Some things are hard to explain in writing, like how I hold a knife, how I use a knife so that I can cut very quickly and efficiently without cutting myself. So I went ahead and did the first video this week to accompany the book, and it's on how to choose a knife that's a good quality kitchen knife, that fits your hand, and how to hold it, and basically how to use it. That's up on Rumble. I did one on green woodwork. That's another passion of mine. I love carving, and green woodwork is very different than what most folks do in America. When we think we're going to build something, whether it's a piece of furniture or whatever, we run down to the hardware store and we buy kiln dried lumber, pressure treated lumber, whatever, and then work on it with power tools and all that. Green woodworking is like it's certainly the ancestor of all woodworking because it's what everybody used to do. It's the old-fashioned way of just going out in the woods and cutting a tree. fell the tree, bucket it into logs, bring it back, cut it up into usable pieces, and make something out of green wood, uncured wood. And that it's actually ideal for spoons, bowls, cups, chargers, which are like wooden plates, what they used to use in like medieval Europe, wooden plates. I actually really like wooden plates. I like wooden bowls and wooden cups because wood is a naturally insulating material. My food stays warm longer on wood than it does on china or metal or anything else, obviously metal. But it also, green woodwork includes making primitive furniture, like anything from a Windsor chair, which is actually really nice. That's a chair that's actually made out of green wood, to a bench or a stool that you might use in the garden, or like a little gazebo or something, or trellises for plants. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with green wood, and you can really get very refined and make very nice pieces. So I started that series this week. I just kind of gave you an intro on basically choosing trees to cut and started talking about how to make a carving block. And this week, I think I'll start roughing out a spoon and show you that. And you can actually split boards from green wood. If you learn this skill, you could save a fortune because lumber is expensive these days, and woodlots really do need to be managed. You have to manage your woods for proper tree growth, to prevent disease. It's just like you cull a herd of deer. Hunting deer is necessary to keep the deer healthy. Cutting trees is necessary to keep the woods healthy. It all just depends on choosing the right tree. Selecting some you want to grow large, some you want to cut when they're small, some you want to coppice. Um, really, these are ancient traditions. They're going back, hundreds, thousands of years, and it's really enjoyable just to get out in the woods and use hand tools. And so obviously you can tell I'm pretty excited about this. I love doing this stuff. I love carving. I love whittling. I love doing practical pieces, some more artistic type pieces. So I'm starting to document that. Long way of saying I'm starting to do some videos on that. So I've got the first video up for that. And the third video, the third one I did this week, so many people have asked me to teach them how to play guitar or to give them advice on how to play guitar. I have been playing guitar for over 30 years. I'm pretty dang good. I played at a professional level. I did an introductory video on how to learn to play guitar without making the mistakes that I made when I was starting out and that most people make. Most people don't get very far in learning to play guitar because of the way they're taught or because of the way they learn on their own, basically because of the way guitar instruction is presented these days, which is just memorizing songs. And, you can hit plateau pretty quickly if all you're doing is rote memory. So I think it's a fun video, and several people have already said they got a lot out of that video. It's just a modicum of music theory applied to the fretboard that will open the whole thing up to you, and you can be playing music very quickly. I'm going to do several more videos in that series. I'll probably do some on mandolin, banjo, who knows. I play about a dozen instruments, so it could end up being a pretty long series, actually. And the fourth and final one I did for the week was on knot tying. As a homesteader, as a woodsman, as a fisherman, I am constantly using knots. Having a working knowledge of knots will make your life easier. They're very convenient, and they used to be essential. If you're actually interested in, prepping and survival type stuff, bushcraft and all that, these knots, you need to know them. But the nice thing about it, knots are not only just useful things for tying a fishing hook or tying together some wood to drag it out of the woods, making a rope ladder. I'll even show you how to make that at some point. Or tying your shoes, or tying down a load on top of your vehicle, whatever, right? Knots can also be ornamental. There's macrame. A lot of the fancier knots can actually be very useful. In net tying and hammock making. But so they're not only practical, they're fun, and they can actually be a little artistic. You can actually make crafts out of knot work. but it's very relaxing, and it's a great way to keep your hands busy and your mind a little occupied when you need to kill some time. I always like to keep a little bit of paracord in my pocket, and if I get stuck at the DMV or something for an hour, I pull it out and I just start practicing tying knots. The time passes quicker and I don't get frustrated because I don't like standing in line. I actually get frustrated pretty easily in that situation. But actually, every morning, most mornings, I'd say 99% of mornings, when I get up, I pour my cup of coffee, turn on the news. I'm not awake yet. I'm not ready to face the day. I'm not ready to start writing or responding to people's questions, on email or social media or anything. I need to just sip on my coffee and be ready to greet the world. And so I take maybe 20, 30 minutes and I just practice some knots. I have a working knowledge of maybe 100 knots. So each day I tie 25. And believe it or not, there are hundreds of knots. There are these old books like the Ashley Book of Knots and the Encyclopedia of Knots and Fancy Rope Work. I think you got about 700 knots. So I am still learning as well. And I'm just presenting this to you, and I'm starting with the most useful, practical, simple knots. So all this is available on Rumble. I believe it's all under Southern Appalachian Herbs, but I've set up an individual channel for each of those. I'm just going to double check that real quick while I'm talking to you. But what I'm also doing is through my Substack newsletter. I call it the Sunday Miscellany. I'm sorry, the Saturday Miscellany. If you sign up for my absolutely free Substack newsletter, not only will you get my podcasts delivered straight to your inbox, my weekly articles delivered straight to your inbox, but now I'm doing this Saturday Miscellany, which is this collection of the videos that don't have to do with herbs. And I'm just sending that out, and it'll go straight to your inbox, and you can click on one if you want to watch it, and if you want to disregard it, no problem. But it's it's fun. It's a new project, and yeah, I'm on Rumble, and everything is coming in under Judson Carroll. So look for me, obviously Judson Carroll on Rumble. My channels are Herbal Medicine 101. Let's see, Knot Tying 101. How to Play Guitar, and Appalachian Green Woodworking and Carving. So you can find all that totally free. Leave a comment, forward it to a friend. Supposedly, if I got like 1,000 views, I'd make 10 cents. So obviously, I'm not in this for the money. It's just a way for me to kind of pass on knowledge and share things that interest me. And there'll probably be a lot of other interesting content on there, especially in relation to the cookbook, because I'm going to be cooking some of the recipes in the book. I'm going to be showing you how to butcher meat, how to ferment vegetables, how to make wine, how to make cheese, bake bread, a lot about gardening and foraging and hunting and fishing and raising livestock, homesteading type stuff. This is all, I think, very practical information, very useful information, stuff we need to preserve and keep. So I hope you enjoy it. It's just fun for me, and hopefully it'll be fun and informative for you. So let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. What is the elephant in the room? Well, the federal government finally admitted that COVID came from the lab in Wuhan this week. First of all, it was the Department of Energy, and then it was the head of the FBI or CIA, I don't remember. They're finally admitting the secret that everybody knew, the thing that got me kicked off of Facebook. If you've been following me for a while, you will know that, almost 3 years ago now, when COVID had not even really made it to the United States, they were just starting to warn about it, I was one of the first people that said, hey, wait a minute. This doesn't look like a virus from natural causes. This does not look like it came from the wet market in Wuhan. First of all, the Chinese people eat a lot of wild animals, and they have for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and pretty unlikely that this bat-borne virus would have suddenly jumped species in an unprecedented way I mean, usually this does not look like a natural virus. This looks like something was made in a laboratory. I was just getting a hint of that, and I said, there's a big bioweapons laboratory in Wuhan, China, and it's only like a couple blocks from where they say this originated. I think it probably came from the bioweapons laboratory. And I then went on and said, and regardless whether it did or not, if China knew there was an outbreak, why didn't they do more to prevent the spread? Why weren't they doing quarantines right there before it spread out to the rest of the world? That's what I said. And immediately, hundreds of people were calling me a racist on Facebook. My account was shut down, my account was locked down, and I was off Facebook. I hadn't said one thing racially motivated. I even made clear in my comments, America has had its own bioweapons lab, still does, whether on the books or off the books. Lyme disease is believed to have come from a bioweapons laboratory in Lyme County, Pennsylvania. We've made mistakes before. Every country has bioweapons laboratories. Every country that has a large military budget. Whether they admit to it or not, they're doing shady stuff off the books. But, I was called a racist and I was shut down. I lost about 40,000 followers on Facebook. Soon thereafter, I was kicked off of YouTube. And, in social media, I was like a pariah. And it was really frustrating. It was really upsetting. I studied traditional Chinese medicine for about a decade. I have probably more fondness for the culture and people and heritage of China than most people. I absolutely am opposed to the communist government. I hate the CCP. Okay? I think they're an illegitimate government. I think they are evil. And how do I say they're evil? Well, look at all the millions of their own citizens they've killed. Millions. Hundreds of millions. Especially if you include all the babies they aborted because they wanted fewer girls in their country. So, hey, you feminists out there, why didn't you have my back? I'm sticking up for little girls. Well, you never seem to care much about little girls, do you, feminists? No. You only care about killing babies. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me get my blood pressure back down. So, the secret came out this week that I was right. I said it before Donald Trump said it. I said it before basically anybody had said it publicly. And they shut me down immediately, which told me I was probably right. Are they going to admit it now? Will the American people finally lose faith in the medical industrial complex? Will you finally realize your government doesn't tell you the truth and that doctors don't have your best interest in mind and that pharmaceutical companies really just want to make a fortune selling you drugs and you're actually prevented from being healthy by following the guidelines of nutrition and health in America? I mean, as I've said before, Amish kids don't have asthma, nowhere near on the rate of other kids. Most people who've looked into it believe it's because they drink unpasteurized milk. It's illegal to sell unpasteurized milk in America, except in just a couple of states where they have passed specific legislation making it legal. It is illegal for herbalists to practice medicine. Really, most doctors can lose their licenses and everything if they start recommending herbs instead of approved pharmaceuticals. It was doctors were losing their jobs and even facing potential prosecution during the pandemic when they started talking about like ivermectin and other alternative therapeutics because the government and their boards and their licensing bureaus were saying, no, you can only push the vaccine. Well, now we know that people that take the vaccine get COVID. It doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. The vaccine seems to have no efficacy in preventing someone from getting the disease. That's what the point of a vaccine is. People who have been vaccinated, boosted, still getting sick. We now know that natural immunity, actually having had the vaccine, actually having the virus and surviving it, gives you more protection against the virus than the vaccine. We now know that potentially more people, I'm just going to say potentially And you can look into it yourself and draw your own conclusions. Look at some of the information that's coming out of New Zealand and England, and they're trying to suppress here in America, Israel especially. The vaccine will probably lead to more deaths than the COVID virus. Long-term effects, heart problems, damage to fertility, infant deaths, miscarriages. The vaccine will probably kill more people than the virus. And they're still pushing it. The elephant in the room, the 10,000-pound gorilla, whatever you want to call it, well, I might as well just go ahead and say it. In the immortal words of Rush Limbaugh, "See, I told you so." That's what he always said. In fact, one of his books was "See, I told you so." I was right. They were wrong. I don't expect any apologies. I take no pleasure in telling you that, in all honesty. I wish I had been wrong. I wish I had been wrong. I wish we were not looking at excess mortality rates, potentially in the millions. That didn't have to happen. I wish people had realized that the therapeutics probably work better than the vaccine early on, that herbs such as sweet Annie, in the wormwood family, other antiviral herbs would have been a good option, that the economic shutdowns were ineffective and harmful. Masking is useless. Masking does not prevent the spread of microscopic viruses. As I said many months ago, if your pants don't hold in your farts, a mask isn't going to prevent that virus from being transmitted. Think about it. If the cloth of your pants and your underwear and everything else will not hold in the smell of your gas, how in the world do you think a cloth mask is going to prevent you from transmitting or getting something as microscopic, as minuscule as a virus? But they pushed it. They pushed it. They wrecked our economy. They kicked the best president we've had in my lifetime out of office. The only president that did not get us involved in a war during his term. Just think of it that way. You may not find him offensive, but he's a damn good president. They ruined a generation of kids. Test scores are going in the toilet. Addictions to fentanyl, mental disorders caused by this isolation. I mean, kids are now wanting their genitals cut off because they spent a couple of years stuck inside, miserable and depressed. This is my theory, of course. And they found people online who said, oh, well, the real problem is your biological gender doesn't match your mental gender. That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. But again, who's going to benefit from it? Who's going to make a fortune off of it? The medical industrial complex is going to do the surgeries and is going to have these kids on hormones and other drugs for the rest of their lives, and the psychiatrists that will be counseling them for the rest of their lives. So, see, I told you so. And this time it really gives me no pleasure to say that whatsoever. But if you can learn, if you can take the lesson from this and many other instances, that you have to take charge of your own health and well-being and be responsible for yourself and your family. And as the old bumper sticker used to say, if you think you can trust your government, just ask any Indian. Come on. Stop trusting and listening to the experts. Do your own research. And always remember, the person with the biggest profit motive is probably not the one with the best interest in your health and safety and freedom. And meanwhile, we see that Tony Fauci's net worth, I think, doubled or tripled during the pandemic. Wonder how that happened. I guess nobody will follow in his footsteps and come up with another pandemic that would enrich them to that extent. No, that'll never happen. All right, but let's go ahead and talk about milk thistle. Now, milk thistle is in the thistle family, and as I've said before, under Carline thistle, we talked about that one before, thistles are wonderful herbal medicine. They're particularly good for the liver. Milk thistle is unique. This is Salibum marianum. Say, according to Plants for a Future, it has a long history in the West as a remedy for depression and liver problems. Recent research has confirmed that it has the remarkable ability to protect the liver from damage resulting from alcoholic and other types of poisoning. The whole plant is astringent, bitter, cholagogue diuretic, emetic, emmenagogue hepatic, stimulant, stomatic, and tonic. A lot of big words. It helps with the digestion. It helps with fevers. It helps pull excess fluids off the body. In large amounts, it can cause you to vomit. It can bring on menses. It is very good for the liver. That's what hepatic means. It's also good to settle the stomach. It's good for all digestive issues. It is used internally in the treatment of liver and gallbladder diseases, jaundice, cirrhosis, hepatitis, and poisonings. The plant is harvested when in flower and dried for later use. Silymarin, so I'm sure that's pronounced more like Silymarin. Doc Jones got me all messed up once. He always calls it Silybum instead of Salibum. He has a great sense of humor. But ever since I heard that, I've had trouble pronouncing this name. Oh, Doc Jones. He's great. Love Doc Jones. Dr. Patrick Jones, Homegrown School of Herbal Medicine. He's my favorite herbal teacher alive today. Silymarin is an extract from the Silymarin. Anyway, it's an extract from the seeds that acts on the membranes of the liver cells, preventing the entry of virus toxins and other toxic compounds, and thus preventing damage to the cells. It also dramatically improves liver regeneration in hepatitis, cirrhosis, mushroom poisoning, and other diseases of the liver. German research suggests that silibin, a flavonoid component of the seeds, is clinically useful in treatment of severe poisonings by Amanita mushrooms. Seed extracts are produced commercially in Europe. This is one you probably want to buy as a standardized extract, by the way, unless you're growing a lot of it and learn to do the seeds yourself. But you want to have some of this on hand as a bottle of standardized extract capsules in case you eat some mushrooms, some poisonous mushrooms. That's really, I'll get to that in a second, but this is pretty amazing stuff. Regeneration of the liver is particularly important in the treatment of cancer, since this disease is always characterized by a severely compromised and often partially destroyed liver. Milk thistle, first of all, we go ahead and say Salibum marianum. This is another one of the herbs named after the Blessed Mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary. This is another herb that has been seen as being essential for generations, for thousands of years, was very much used in monastic medicine, almost a miraculous herb. Now, and there are legends, like miracle type legends associated with this herb. It was shown to people by angels, or it was associated with the Blessed Virgin Mary through legend. It said that her breast milk fell on the leaves, and that's what gives it that unique look. The green leaves with white lines all through them, and it's just been long associated as a very almost miraculous herb. Now, why would it be miraculous? Well, if you eat an Amanita mushroom, let's say you have a destroying angel or a death cap, very common mushroom in America. They grow on your lawn. They pop up white. They look like big agaricus button mushrooms that you might get at the grocery store. Many people have taken a bite of it, and a few hours later, their liver is turned to jelly. It destroys the liver and brings about death very, very quickly. It's incredibly toxic. To have an herb, milk thistle, that will prevent the damage, and help the liver heal from something that dramatic, yeah, that's about as close to miraculous as you come. There is nothing in modern medicine that can do for the liver what milk thistle can do. No pharmaceutical, no treatment. Having had members of my family that died of liver cirrhosis, I think the doctors that did not recommend milk thistle should be held criminally liable. If they were not taught it in schools, their professors should be held criminally liable. If the medical research of the time was not recommending milk thistle above all treatment protocols, then the pharmaceutical industry, the whole medical industry should be held criminally liable. I hope in my lifetime I see someone bring suit on that basis. It can be proven that milk thistle protects and heals the liver. There is no reason it should not be used, except pharmaceutical companies have a profit motive that pushes drugs over herbs. And that brings us full circle, doesn't it? All right, so just a little historical info, and I'll wrap this up because I've already told you the most important aspects of milk thistle. It was mentioned by Theophrastus and Galen, ancient Greek herbalists, for liver health. Dioscorides actually liked it as a food more than a medicine. He said that the leaves eaten when newly sprung up, boiled, and then added, dressed with oil and salt, were very delicious. But that the juice of the root in large amounts would encourage vomiting. So that's why we call it an emetic. Pliny the Elder recommended mixing the juice of milk thistle with honey to carry off the bile. Again, it was seen as a hepatic, a liver herb. St. Hildegard von Bingen referred to it as lady's thistle, the thistle of Our Lady. She said anyone who has a stitch in his heart, that's a pain in the side, essentially, when you get that pain from running, often a sign of liver inflammation if it happens when you're not running. And she called it a stitch in the heart or any other part of the body. Should take a little lady's thistle and a little less sage and reduce them into the juice in a water. When he is tormented by the stitch, he should immediately drink this and he will be better. Now, I should say the stitch in the side is not necessarily a symptom of liver inflammation. It's actually very common among asthmatics, or if you have bronchitis, COPD. It can be a symptom of the lungs working very hard to bring in air when they're constricted. That sort of simulates the gasping for air you have when you're running, which is what causes the stitch in the side. So don't freak out if you have a stitch in the side. That's all I'm saying. It can be from various causes. But usually if it happens while resting, when not exerting oneself, then yeah, it can be liver inflammation because the liver inflammation kind of put pressure and friction in that area. John Gerard also called it Our Lady's Thistle. He said it's called in Latin, well, we don't need to get into that, High Dutch, etc. And he really just mentioned everything that, other writers, previous, Dioscorides, Pliny, etc., had already said. Culpeper thought it was a particularly beautiful plant. And he thought it would be really ornamental in gardens. He was encouraging people to grow it. And Miss Grieve mentioned its medicinal uses and actions. She said the seeds of the plant are nowadays used for the same purpose as blessed thistle. And on this point, John Evelyn wrote, disarmed of its prickles and boiled, it is worthy of esteem and thought to be a great breeder of milk and proper diet for women who are nurses. So they really saw it more as an emmenagogue, an herb that increases breast milk. She mentioned that in Germany it was used more for jaundice and various biliary conditions, and even used for congestion and pleurisy and pneumonia. Michael Moore, the herbalist, loved the herb. He liked to combine it with Oregon grapefruit, yellow dock, aristolochia, and such as a detox formula. He worked with a lot of addicts and he used detox formulas a lot. He also worked with a lot of cancer patients, so it's very important to remember that. As a liver tonic, he combined it again with Oregon grape. He used chaparral, toadflax, echinacea, burdock, yellow dock, and blue flag. Just a tiny bit of blue flag. Really probably shouldn't have even mentioned that one because it can be very toxic if used wrong. He used it in all of his liver tinctures. I'm just kind of running over it quickly. But I mean, simply put, it's a great herb. It is the herb for liver troubles. Interestingly, because of its religious significance, back in the Middle Ages, people actually wore milk thistle around their necks as a sort of like a talisman almost to ward off evil. It's always been so closely associated with the Blessed Virgin Mary, and because it has such almost miraculous properties that people actually wore it that way. In fact, it was the ancient Saxons who believed, to see this written in their old works, this wart, if hung around a man's neck, it setteth snakes to flight. And the seeds were used for rabies. So they believed in a talisman, essentially, to scare off snakes and use the seeds to treat rabies in the ancient Anglo-Saxon cultures. I don't think I'd want to wear milk thistle around my neck. It's a little prickly, actually. So maybe we have some better options there. But hey, if you live in snake country, give it a shot. What do you got to lose? I don't think it has any magical properties, but maybe there's something about it that snakes don't like. The scent. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, y'all, actually, I'd probably take the advice of wearing milk thistle around my neck to scare off snakes over any advice given by Anthony Fauci. So I think we'll just go ahead and we'll end this one on that note. Y'all have a wonderful week. Spring's coming in. Great time to get out in the woods and start looking around for the plants. They're starting to poke their heads up. And maybe get into a little woodworking or learn to play guitar, tie knots, or just cook good food. Have a good time. And if you overindulge a little bit on the alcohol, have your milk thistle. I'm certainly not recommending over drinking, but have your milk thistle just in case. You can never know what can happen. You could eat a bad mushroom, anything. You could get hepatitis. Have your milk thistle on hand. And fortunately, it's very easy to find. I was just in a Dollar General the other day, and I think it was the Rexall brand. They had standardized extract, maybe 60 or 90 capsules for like $4.50, maybe $5. I don't know. So, yeah, no excuse not to have this one on hand because, yeah, it can save your life. And as I said, if you are a doctor, if you know a doctor, hand them the physician's desk reference to herbal medicine, turn to the page on milk thistle, and make sure they read it, because I honestly think it is absolutely immoral and criminal that this is not more widely used in the treatment of liver damage and as a liver protectorant, etc., etc. So, y'all have a great one. I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.